Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
The NHS is an organisation that still in the main keeps records on paper in cardboard folders. Successive governments have tried to do something about that with major projects like digitising patient records. But they're also looking at ways of harnessing digital information to make us better, as Giles has been finding out, oddly with the help of racing cars.
For Formula One McLaren racer Jenson Button, driving is far safer than in the days of Niki Lauda or Ayrton Senna. But anybody might reasonably assume he's more likely to need a doctor than a doctor is to need him. But they'd be wrong. It turns out that thanks to some clever chicanery and digital wizardry, trying to take the checkered flag first can advance medical science, and McLaren are at the cutting edge of making that happen. In 1969, when McLaren's founder was racing in this, there were only really two ingredients to success: the quality of the car and the quality of the driver. Nowadays, there's a third thing: research. Now, these days, at the top end, that means being able to take vast amounts of data very, very fast, so much so that you can actually apply it during the race. And there is no intrinsic reason why, if you can harvest that kind of data from a moving racing car, you can't take it from the human body. Doing just that is potentially putting us on the road to recovery, but also putting doctors firmly in control not only of diagnosing illnesses in humans as a species, but within you as an individual, and therefore engineering care for you as a specific machine in the race of life.
The opportunity in the technology is not only to predict events before they occur, but to personalise treatment. So not doing what's best for the population, but what's best for you. But more importantly, keep you out of expensive healthcare environments and in your home environment where you could potentially be monitored and action be taken without ever having to step inside a hospital.
Morning. Good morning. Morning.
This is in initial testing in a pilot project at Birmingham Children's Hospital called the Real-Time Adaptive and Predictive Indicator of Deterioration, or RAPID. See what they did there. The government's Life Sciences Minister insists it's not a quirky one-off, but part of lots of new ways technology can help the NHS.
You're going to see diagnostic digital monitoring. We're going to have electronic health records. We're going to want hospitals where when you arrive they know who you are before you get there and they've got your medicines prepared for you and personalised. And an NHS, a digital NHS that's able to monitor and measure performance and safety across the whole system.
The thing that's likely to slow such advances down is patients realising to make it work, their confidential health data needs to be stored and easily accessible by the NHS. Rightly or wrongly in the past, that's tended to slam on the brakes of such ideas.
Giles gets all the good jobs. Joining us now is George Freeman, the Life Sciences Minister. But first, let's speak to Renata Sampson, the Chief Executive of Big Brother Watch. Renata, don't the upsides of a digital NHS outweigh the downsides?
I think there are some wonderful upsides of a digital NHS, and absolutely everything we discovered from that video it shows some marvellous things about predicting healthcare and monitoring our health as we go along in our homes without having to go to hospital. However, we have to take things step by step. We have had a lot of problems with the process of digitising our medical records, and medical care and medical records and our own personal health data is a very sensitive issue for a lot of people. We need to know exactly what's going to happen, when, how and why, and be asked, rather than there ever being an assumption that we all agree to this.
Right, are we asked? I mean, do people actually realise that this is happening or going to happen, that all their records and personal medical information is going to be stored, or they want to store it electronically?
I think it's very patchy right now. There have been problems in the past with the care.data scheme in that initially people weren't being asked and then they were being sort of informed that it was going to happen, but maybe they may have some concerns about it through a leaflet that came through their door that was known as the pizza leaflet because it was tied up with pizza delivery leaflets that were coming through. Now, that was criticised heavily, and from my point of view, rightly so. So things have stopped, things have slowed down, and now there's a re-evaluation of how best to engage with the public, which we support. Of course, there's going to be an awful lot of benefit from this sort of moving forward with digitisation. And after all, we are now becoming digital citizens. So we have to accept that it's going to happen. It is going to happen a little bit, but we do need to still take people into consideration and not just assume that because it's perceived as being so wonderful that everybody's going to be happy with it. It is our choice what happens with our healthcare, and it should be our choice as to what happens with our medical data.
Renata Sampson, thank you very much. Well, George Ream, let's pick up on some of those things. It's been patchy. Do you accept that people haven't been informed in a uniform and comprehensive way, taking on board this pizza leaflet that was put through the door?
Yes, I think NHS England would accept that the way they did the care.data consultation was not a case study in consultation. I think made partly because for them it's so obvious that a modern NHS requires to be digital. And I think, Renata says we have to choose where. The truth is that for individual care, when an ambulance comes for you, when you go to your doctor or to a hospital, we want the hospital to be ready, the GP to know and to be able to click and look at your history and make sure we diagnose you properly. Far too many of my constituents, particularly elderly patients, have to repeat all the way down the care pathway their diagnosis. That shouldn't happen. And we're running an NHS on paper and cardboard. My local hospital has a 10-mile data repository where our medical records are stored with treasury tags. The question we should be asking is, why in 2015, with this fabulous NHS, are we trying to run it on paper and cardboard? All health is becoming digital. We have to modernise our system.
Well, because you said it hasn't been done, or it has been done in a patchy way. So either people haven't been told properly, or perhaps the information has been shared with third parties that people didn't know about, either deliberately or inadvertently. Do you accept that too?
Well, I would accept that there's been some not good enough practice in the NHS, and one of the things that Jeremy Hunt and I have put in place in this pause that Renata talked about, we set out the National Data Guardian. We are absolutely determined to make sure that patients can trust this system properly, and Dame Fiona Caldecott, fully independent, is going to come back with proposals. Secondly, we've made illegal the use of data for, say, insurance purposes, which was one of the specific accusations that people were worried about, rightly.
You've made that
and
illegal.
Lastly, I just say, we have put in place a system for giving patients the power, ultimately with a slide button on your phone, so that patients take control of consent. All the evidence is, when you ask patients, do you want your medical records to be used for the purposes of the NHS's research and better treatment, the vast majority of times it's anonymised. They say yes, 99% of patients.
I mean, if it's anonymised, then surely there is more good in terms of sharing vital information. You don't have to keep repeating the same bits of information about your symptoms and your state of health every single time you visit the hospital. That is a good thing.
I mean, the problem is that digital security just can't be guaranteed. And that, people have been on this programme talking about the people hacking, talk and all those sorts of things.
But does that mean we shouldn't have progress on it?
I don't know what progress means. I mean, one of my problems with talking about technology and progress, and it's all very well to have fancy sort of films about racing cars, but for me progress is actually to be able to stand in front of more doctors and more nurses, and not technology. I mean, the technology is only ever a tool, and what people really want is not to talk to a screen, or they don't want it all, they don't want to stay at home. They actually often want to see people who care and understand and listen, and that actually the digital thing is not very good at understanding or caring or listening.
That's not what nurses and doctors will tell you. So, for example, if you looked at the piece
at
Birmingham Hospital, the patients are telling you that they love that wireless telemetry for children in post-operative cardiac recovery. No wires, no cables, wireless telemetry. The nurses will tell you they're getting a 24/7 feed from each individual patient with a personalised algorithm that bleeps when that child has a problem. That allows them to deliver really personalised care.
Is it a
when
substitute,
the ambulance
though?
comes
Is it
to
a substitute,
you want them
though,
to have an iPad, don't you, with your details.
George, is it a substitute, though, for the health and medical staff themselves? Because there will be particularly elderly people who would rather see someone not be replaced by...
it's not a substitute. It's about allowing our frontline clinicians to do what they are there to do, which is exercise personalised clinical judgment, armed with data that is accurate, up to date. So I went to my local hospital the other day, the nurse is doing prescribing, the drug round. They've now introduced an electronic prescribing system. The nurse says, it's brilliant. I don't have to waste time checking the patient's history. I can spend time looking the patient in the eye, looking at her record accurately and changing the treatment.
Just finally, because we've almost run out of time, you said that you have made it illegal for this data to go to third parties like insurance and pension firms. So that means nobody's personal medical information will go beyond what pharmaceutical companies, though. Do they go to those?
So Dame Fiona Caldecott is literally about to come back to us with recommendations on consent and how she suggests we move ahead. There are three uses of data, really. There's individual care, when the ambulance comes, at the A&E, at the local GP. There's data for NHS system performance and safety, patient safety. We want to be able to know where there is dangerous practice and outliers of treatment. And thirdly, for research. And in research, the vast majority of the data is all consented. Patients very readily want their data to be used for research. The real issue is more actually to do with how we allow data to flow through a NHS so that when you arrive, people know who you are and they know how to treat you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.